Good.
All right. So for those of you who don't know Sergio, I'm going to let him introduce himself. He is a longtime Gravity Sketch partner.
Yeah, it's been, wow, it's been like probably over a year since, yeah. So thank you everyone for being here. My name is Sergio Martin. I am a senior transportation design student at Art Center. So graduating in December, which is coming very fast, no pressure. And so I started actually working with Gravity Sketch, I would say 2 years ago. But more profoundly, I started really digging into the possibilities of the program and how I can use it, how it relates to my way of using it about a year ago, year and a half. So last summer, actually, I was interning at Honda. Honda pretty much gave me full freedom of doing a project that I had already researched, and it had a lot of modularity per se. So I thought, why not present it from Gravity Sketch? That way I can actually showcase how a new format can also explain a new format of a new car. So I thought maybe I can present it from there. We can actually showcase the program to Honda, who was trying to pretty much take it on as a part of their workflow. And so it all worked out. I reached out to Rebecca. Rebecca pretty much helped us out throughout the whole process, and we did kind of like pretty much like a 3-company per se kind of event in which I built a full project, both by sketching pretty much the whole thing, like ideation, and then including it in presenting it all like a stage in Gravity Sketch, and then presenting from Gravity Sketch so we can showcase, like I said, pretty much the capabilities of this program. Many companies have been trying to look into new formats. So we already know about Blender. A lot of companies are actually willing and able to pay for even lessons of this. Gravity Sketch has been embraced by Ford that I know of. Ford, I would say Rivian, I believe. I was interning at BMW for 6 months, and I know that they've been thinking about it. For sure, Honda has been, given that I was involved in that, has been pretty much embracing that. So there's a lot of future in pushing the envelope, and really we're gonna be the ones showcasing how this works in this environment. However, the way I use this, to not make it so long, the way I use this program is pretty much I don't use it as a final presentation just yet. The way I like to use it is to remain true to my sketches. So if you have this emotion that you feel like sometimes you lose when you jump automatically to Alias or to Blender, Gravity Sketch is so good at just transferring that sketch. You literally kind of mimic that emotion, and then you turn it into 3D. You can push it as far as possible. I commonly just leave it as a intermediate point to where I showcase my sketch process up to not final per se, but semi-final project. And then I create a proof of concept in 3D with Gravity Sketch. For the most part, this creates a wow factor that lets them know that you're very much aware about constraints, about scale, about proportions early on. This is a must, and this is what the studio commonly focuses on. So if you can actually introduce that wow factor into your work process, I am positive that they will embrace the program, and they would also look at you in the more like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about because they're presenting this proof of concept early on. So I hope that helps. Long-winded. Okay, so shall we get started with okay, let's share the screen. Let's see how this works here. Okay, please feel free to let me know if anything kind of goes wrong or you have any questions. I'm going to try to log in here really quick. All right. let's go into files. There it is. Okay, so I'm just going to show you pretty much a project that I started, I would say 3 months ago. And for the most part, this project actually has been a really quick project that I would actually put in my portfolio. And that was kind of like the purpose of me pretending that I would pretty much utilize this to present to a company, to shoot out for the best quality, fastest and fastest outcome, and also perhaps even the heaviest work effort within Gravity Sketch. So I can show you how I translated a really quick idea into a 3D model. So to get started, I pretty much started with just 4 pages to create a very simple way of explaining what the concept is. So in this case, it would be a Lotus Group B, or you can call it a Baja electric sports car, in which you take pretty much a silhouette or the footprint of an iconic vehicle, such as the Lotus Esprit, and you pretty much turn it all terrain. So some of the inspiration comes from just raw balance, in which pretty much CNC materials pretty much unify with the all-terrain, kind of creating this balance between the contained design and emotion along with the raw exploration. And so some of the ideation came from this, to where taking the original footprint of the Spree, literally in raw form, putting the inspiration into the vehicle and creating this overall frame that would sustain just about the whole concept. And in terms of ideating some of the ideas of how the exterior would look like, pretty much once again translating quick CNC forms onto the overall subject to convey that. So the way I pretty much started, let's take away not layer one. Okay, the benchmark. So for the benchmark, I pretty much utilized this and this. So I went ahead and did a little bit of research about the kind of positioning that you use for rally. And the challenge was that the kind of footprint that you have from the Lotus Esprit is very low. So you have a very low center of gravity in itself. The person would be pretty much standing, well, sitting here, but your legs would be extended just about that, very, very low. Your center of gravity would be pretty much that low, which does not really relate to this because it's a lot more upright. So I thought by unifying it with this Baja Porsche would pretty much open up some space, and Gravity Sketch will help me prove the point that you can actually fit this kind of packaging into this type of wheelbase, but with this silhouette. So kind of a challenge there. And so what I did pretty much was I started out by pretty much including a, not sure why it's not selected. By utilizing this one-to-one model, I could actually start proving that that my concept is actually is true. There it is. Now I can use it. Yeah. So overall, my concept.
Sergio,
yes.
I got a question. So I see that, you know, when I'm doing stuff like the packaging studies and things like that, that usually, you know, they're asked, especially like some of my professors are really like, oh, you have to use like the 95th percentile male.
Right.
And I think the figure in the Gravity Sketch, it says it's 1.66 meters, which is a little bit shorter. Have you found like a resource for, you know, getting a more accurate to what like a lot of automotive companies are looking for? like a mannequin that's more accurate to that?
I'm really glad you mentioned that because I actually ran into that issue just a couple of weeks ago by presenting one of my finals. And so no, I have not yet found one that that is the right proportion. So for now, I kind of leave a little bit of leadway towards the feet and also like the way it sits. On this vehicle particularly, I actually ended up making the proportions a little bit bigger than normal. So it's actually overextending it a bit too much for the seats and for the sake of that size. But that would be something that we can actually work on with Gravity Sketch to improve on the size perhaps of this model, so we can have the right sizing.
I got the same issue too, and one way I kind of worked with it is I used the arrow tool with the dimensions and the increasing tool and the tool belt to kind of size the mannequin perfectly.
Right, that makes perfect sense to where you pretty much bring one in.
Well, what does them bringing iPads to class change?
It doesn't change anything. That's the thing. They realize that after like maybe the first 1 month.
Yeah, and you bring it here and then use the that tool in the tool belt to kind of size it up and use the arrow to
the
kind
measure
of know
tool.
exactly how high. Yeah.
So we pretty much you scale it to 1/6. Is it 1/6/5?
I think
it's 185, right? Or 182 or 3, something like that.
Yeah, it's 180 something. And then you like make it perpendicular and use the increase tool. You know the in the tool belt.
Something like that.
Do Sergio, do you have the tool belt on?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and if you take that second one from the left and kind of hover over and click twice, and then on your joystick you can slide to the right and you'll have options to increase the size or rotate, and you can also have increments. So it just stays in its perfect form. So if you maybe swipe twice, I think it's twice, that's that one.
Right. I think that's a pretty good option. So here's another thing. Now I just learned something from you guys. That would be pretty much the solution to putting in the right sizing. I personally have been pretty much like the initial part that I did, which is just measure and kind of size it to the right sizing and then position it. That's the way I've been doing it. But it would be I think it would be ideal to pretty much perhaps even just kind of save it and reutilize it from file to file.
Yeah, I mean, I think if like, can you save these mannequins out as prefabs? Like once you scale it, can I go back and save it as a new prefab?
Right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, you can just drop it in here. It should be pretty much the same size.
And it will retain all the joint mobility, all that stuff, right?
Right, exactly. So pretty much whatever you save there, you should already have as a backup. So you bring it in and it should be pretty much the same size.
Okay. Cool.
And we can always import, I guess, a 95th percentile mannequin from a different software as a prefab.
True. The only thing about that is that the beauty about this is mainly that you can actually position it quickly.
Yeah, it's posable.
Where in other programs, perhaps it's just a standalone. You already. So that would be the downfall of it. But I think the easiest way of actually fixing that issue would be this. As we came to realize, and once you save it as a prefab, well, then you can still bring it in. It's the right sizing, so you can still kind of model it depending on how you need it.
Yeah, I think that it would also be a great investment for Gravity Sketch to like have that as a prefab, just like by default. But this is a good, I think, way to do it for sure.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree. And this is also the beauty about Gravity Sketch. Like as a community, we can pretty much kind of show each other's way of working, and then even contact each other like, hey, maybe we could actually improve on this one based on what we actually learn in the field. So like I said, I personally just came into that problem like 2 weeks ago, just kind of showcasing an orthographic that I was doing, and then realizing that it was slightly short of what I needed. In terms of pretty much like following through with how I actually translate these ideas quickly into Gravity Sketch. Now, I usually just take one of my sketches and I try to do it and try to position in kind of like the same scale and same dynamicism that I want out of the model. And so since I kind of like the emotion of this sketch, as you guys pretty much know, you can actually sketch this. I do it very rough. So the first thing I do is actually I position it pretty much in the center with perhaps a mirror. And then I just kind of start kind of marking down where I would want everything to go. Once I have this, then of course I start kind of like mimicking some of the dimensions based on the person. So by having this a bit lower, I can actually start, thinking about maybe this actually goes over the person like such. How low does it go from here? And once I have those kinds of dimensions pretty much proved, then I start going into, as you guys already know, surfacing, and just kind of thinking like, well, if this worked out for me, then I can go for I usually go for a subdivision right away. And where's it gonna go? There's, and I start pretty much like unifying all the surfaces to kind of convey like a quick iteration of what the vehicle is going to be. Now, of course, this takes a bit more time, because the way I usually do it is, like I said, fairly rough, to where it kind of gives me a dimension of the vehicle within the same constraints. But then I start thinking about sections such as this one, to where it kind of goes down like this, and how it starts kind of having a few sections here that are a little more marked, so it can actually start giving me a direction of what it would be to have those tension sections. So let me see if I can showcase you this sketch. I took away the wheels, took away the frame. All right, so this is pretty much what I'm trying to convey. I started out like this. So what I quickly explained, it pretty much, I was trying to recreate what I started here. Very much the sketch that I have on as pretty much as an underlay. I started really thinking about how everything relates, figure out where the suspension is, where pretty much all the technical stuff, get that out of the way, really feel how the person is going to be sitting within the vehicle, where the battery pack perhaps is going to be, where if you're going to have the suspension kind of like in a conventional way, the same. The wheels, you start placing them everywhere. Everything that you have like hard points, you start kind of already thinking about it. That way, once you come back into sketching, you can actually either start sketching on top of this. So yeah, you can already kind of start thinking about how this could actually affect your design in a way that you're thinking about the hard points and where your visibility of the the driver. And so So very, very rough, just very quickly kind of think of where everything's gonna go and connect perhaps. But you're no longer thinking about, if this is gonna work out in the end, because if you have this kind of issue and you have not resolved it early on, then once you turn it into a 3D model, then this person might not fit correctly. So I ran into a few issues or even visibility here, where I had to really, really hone in for maybe like 30 minutes, really think about, okay, in reality, if you're sitting here, and this is actually what happens in the studio. I usually go 100%, really kind of sit here and feel like, okay, I'm driving the vehicle. What are my hard points? Can I see out? And this issue was huge. Just kind of thinking about this cant rail just really on my head, and how we can actually reduce that. So this packaging is just a really, really big part of the process in the studio. And so you can do, let's just say, the coolest sketches, and that is part of it. But if you cannot solve it early on and really showcase this, then they would just not really go for your design. So one thing that I guess I'm trying to explain is, you guys have already been through this sketching section before, and are quite knowledgeable. Now let's take it a step up and really prove, like, let's say you could actually show something like this quickly as your point of reference, but do it in such way, even invite them into the program to where you can actually sit down with them and show them why you picked such lines and how they relate to the driver and where the technology is going to be placed, such as the IP, where your sitting position is going to be like, so that way, even when you start kind of showcasing like the measurements or so, you can showcase what the true wheelbase would be of the vehicle based on what the segment that you're creating. As we talked about the sizing of the Oscar. So this is very important.
Sergio, when you were demonstrating, once you got it placed in, are you usually working from like a side view sketch or something that you pull in, or are you just jumping straight into sketching with like the ink tool in 3D?
So that's kind of like the ethereal part that I like to leave open. I personally choose to kind of choose only one sketch that I feel has the most emotion that I'm trying to convey, and either resketch it. It's like this one was more of a Photoshop that I actually resketch in the way that I wanted to create it. So to me, this is the key sketch. And so I usually, even though I'm missing a lot of information, I like to really take on that sketch. And I believe it was, there it is. Yeah, so this was to me my key sketch to really focusing on just the emotion, just one huge aspect of the vehicle that I can like recreate, but I can also figure out. Yeah. So given that I chose to do this more kind of like an Italian way of designing vehicles, like back in the day, they used to have just an orthographic view. And I thought that would be cool if I utilize that and see how much I can push it and figure out. That way, the dynamicism comes from this kind of silhouette, but the overall proportion comes from my benchmarks to really prove that the wheelbase is similar to that of a Porsche and an Esprit, as well as the actual silhouette of it.
Okay.
So yeah, everything else is just kind of moving lines and sketching along that comparison. And this is why I utilize this program as kind of like in the middle, because it helps me create more ideas, more solutions in the process.
Totally.
So yeah, so pretty much removing that. Let's say if I just take off the sketch, I started out very quickly with that sketch. And of course, I proved it with this chassis that's underneath. Based on the actual dimensions that I found online for the wheelbase, I created my own size. I wanted something right in between the Lotus Esprit and the Porsche for the sense of balance and also scale. So I pretty much utilized that and then kind of pushed the envelope once laying down the wheels and the overall stance. Then of course the benchmark, I went ahead and proved it by pretty much toning down a little bit and then positioning the Oscar in a more lower position because I needed to clear this very fast roof line. But it's also, as you can see, a very straight, very upright way of sitting, as you can kind of compare with this guy right here. So if you pretty much move them, it's exactly the same position. It's just a bit lower. And that's kind of, it does take a bit of time, I'm not gonna lie, because you have to make sure that you have the right proportion, the right sizes, the right proportions. And so, but like I said, this is the beauty of this program too, that you can actually be more kind of work around constraints very easily and without feeling the stress of just punching in numbers or making sure that the curvature is like just perfect. So once I had that benchmark, once again, it kind of allows you to create whatever ideas you want out of your sketch, recreating such sketch like such. And then once I have the actual sketch, I actually go ahead and tone it down like that. And then I started working pretty much on the overall design based on surfaces. So I have this usually kind of lingering around just to kind of still give me a bit of that idea of what I started with. And this is just where I just really start taking into consideration everything that I looked into. So by turning it once again, I go into subdivision quite quickly. And then I kind of start connecting some lines to all right. Yeah, so the reason why I do this is I guess I got kind of used to ideating in 3D programs such as Blender and so. And if you're gonna export into Blender, you can pretty much really start thinking about how you're gonna control those lines. To me, my favorite way of doing so is like this. And yes, it's not super technical, it's not, but I like the fact that I can actually induce this kind of tension when I'm not being extremely like focus on measurements and curvatures and so you can start kind of creating these tension points that already start building your design in the way that you desire it. And I usually, what I do is pretty much like I said, the sketch is underlay. That's the secondary underlay that already conveys that that idea. So then I start mimicking where such panels go. Sorry guys, I think my controls just feels weird. There you go. Yeah, so let's just say this. The way I've presented it before is both kind of a live session to where if you can get, your creative director to kind of log in, which they're usually pretty busy, so you need to be kind of quick about what you're trying to convey. So if you have some issues of pretty much packaging or just concerns, mainly the things are concerns about, oh, the rake of your windshield is too fast. Maybe what is the visibility of that? Your pretty much your hard points might be a little too low here, even if you don't have an engine here. How do you prove that your fender is quite large enough to still, convey the jounce of the suspension, or if this is actually up to spec to where you can kind of roughly say, yes, it is, and you can measure it as we measure the Oscar. So one way of using this program is, of course, inviting creative director or the team and showing them just live how you have the right proportions already, the measurements from the both the Oscar and also the chassis, and you pretty much start moving things into what they might consider would be more appropriate, and kind of building it like on the spot. The second way of doing so is by really showcasing kind of like the chassis measurements, and showing yeah, pretty much the location of the person. And how you see outside. And sorry guys, I'm trying to find. Oh, that's okay. Oh, there you go. So showcasing pretty much like how you got there. So sorry, this looks a bit of a mess, but this is actually kind of the fun mess that I like using. So it's the original sketch. I tried to once I kind of convey the kind of like the rough sketch of this and have those lines already kind of figured out in all dimensions. Then I started going into how it would look with the surfacing to kind of mimic these highlights. And so I started pretty much building interesting. There it is. Yeah, just starting pretty much building building the surface with sub D to kind of start explaining this surfacing that I was trying to showcase. So this I would just pretty much I started showing pretty much like the hard points once again, and how suspension would be linked to here, how the turning radius is compared to the actual. Let's just say you can actually use this as a benchmark. Let's say the Porsche 911 has exactly this dimensions. As you can see, I overextended the wheel a little bit outwards. You provide the reasoning as of why, which by comparing and reducing, let's say you remove or you reduce the opacity of the chassis, you can show that the reason why you overextended is because you have a better turning radius. If you do so, you have a pretty much like in-wheel motor or so. It's just, even if you push the envelope on the package, you can still showcase in real life how you got there and why you're comparing your sketch to the original one, to the proportions of the original versus what you got and why you have it. This in itself would win you pretty much I guess the trust of that you know what you're designing, even if it's new, even if it has never been perhaps done before, you can showcase in real life how you can fit things on and off with those new proportions that you're actually providing, and how once you have this pretty much packaged, how you actually resolve the issues. As you can see on the original rough sketch, when you sit down here, you have this problem to where pretty much the cant rail was very, very close here. But once I start the surfacing, I actually start kind of finessing these areas in which this is flat enough to lay a glass on or support, but then this kind of fans out, kind of giving you the feeling that this is actually a little more open. In itself is almost in the same position, but just by really finessing some of these areas, it can gives you the feeling of more openness, but without destroying the overall packaging that could end up being the final iteration. And yes, so this is actually, I really hope this is helpful. I know that there's a lot of things that perhaps you guys have already seen before, but this is I found to be very, very important to use in a pretty much on a daily basis. And the level of presentation that usually the studio or the head of design requires, if you're gonna present something a bit rough, like a simple sketch like such, you might want to really showcase the dimensions or the reason why you're presenting it like that, almost in real, pretty much in real time. Because if not, they would think, okay, perhaps you're lacking a bit of thinking into your design. Issues like this one come about. So if you do it in real life, this is where the program really comes to life, and we can really show how you can fix this. Then even in the same day, perhaps without wasting any time, once you start kind of showcasing your improvement, it really shows a difference of how you fix those issues and really position the people and the suspension and everything in the right place. So please let me know if you have any questions, anything else you might want to look into in terms of how to utilize it in the studio.
Could you show us some of the like the sketches and things that you like, other sketches perhaps that you've done? I'm trying to a lot of this is like more in the 3D modeling space, but I was wondering if you do use the ink tool and things like that too, or the stroke tool, to do like more of like wireframe stuff. If that isn't your workflow, then that's fine. I just curious.
No, that's true. Let me see. I'm sure this will work. Let's see if I have it here. Oh no, this usually happens. Okay, let me go into a different space here. Good.
I just want to shout out, that is a fantastic presentation room you've got set up there too. Like, that's really dynamic.
I really appreciate that. This is pretty much another, this is pretty much what I did with Honda and Gravity Sketch. So this actually might even help prove the kind of like the idea that we're trying to showcase. So I started out with the strong concept in which you iterated as a presentation, and then you have all your work up like such. You have pretty much your initial concept, how you got this is pretty much the way I like to work from inside out. I'm very technical, as you guys have already seen. Just because I have a bit of knowledge about how to build a vehicle, I like to really create from nothing. And so I like pretty much creating like the chassis where all the cavities, the opportunities that it opens for a new design and for a new aesthetic perhaps. So I designed the chassis and then had rough iterations of the actual motor with call outs of how it works, or perhaps what it is, of the battery pack and how you can actually use it. And then just a quick iteration of how the vehicle would be positioned in comparison to the user. When it comes to the interior, is the same thing. It's just iterations about how it works, perhaps, how you can actually iterate it both in motion or in just size. And this is the invitation that I was telling you about that is extremely, extremely important. This is where your creative designers will be like, okay, this person really is looking into the right aspects of car design, which is how does the user gonna use it, or so this is the initial invitation of how to sit in it and what you see, and even I think this is locked right now, but you can actually move things left and right. In terms of what you were asking,
I do have one quick question. Were all these like interior components and all that, were those also modeled in Gravity Sketch, or those like Blender or something else like imported in?
No, these are completely in Gravity Sketch.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in modeling, well, I mean, for this project specifically, I gave myself the challenge to really push the envelope on the quality of surfacing and quality in Gravity Sketch, so that it can benefit my point, of course, but it can benefit Honda in the way of thinking that you can actually utilize this to this presentation level of surfacing. And on the opposite side, Gravity Sketch will be aware of how much data you can actually include within a presentation with the quality and everything.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No, that's actually great that you're asking. So the second part of the presentation was actually showcasing how fast you can ideate pretty much all your ideas. So I have all the sketches here. The same way I presented, I showed you the other presentation. I like to start kind of ideating, from translation of inspiration quickly into what that form is going to look like thanks to this, and then to the overall concept, and then thinking about the actual movement and placing placement of things like such as the glass or the rooftop. And so just really thinking in action. So the same way you can actually start thinking, okay, I already have that sketch. Unfortunately, I took it off for sake of presentation, but the same way I had a sketch here, I would just put it in mirror mode and start sketching, kind of mimicking the same proportions. And I just use this kind of ink tool to quickly get those proportions, that iteration, just a quick format, of where the wheels are, and yeah, just to kind of get the right feeling going. So within 5 minutes, I was able to do each one of these, and then in 10 minutes, I roughly go into just just quick surfacing, not subdivision. So to kind of block out maybe graphic iterations or anything like that. Same thing with this one. And
what do you find is the different, like when you do these, you were saying that you didn't use sub D. Is there a reason for that versus using,
Yeah, the main reason for not using sub D on this ones was because I was not sure yet about what I wanted out of the vehicle, given that I had so many iterations. I was really looking for the right emotion to come out. So like this one, this was one of my favorite ones, but then once I actually modeled it quickly, in 10 minutes, I came to realize that it looked too much like a Lotus Elise or Exige. And that's not, that's kind of like you can consider that to be one of the constraints, that perhaps you fall into an idea that hits a wall once you create it into 3D. And so I was
Yeah.
glad that I came into this realization, to then I'm moving quickly into yet, I utilize that sketch in the back to create this proportion. Maybe it's a little more mid-cab, kind of like a Honda del Sol.
Yeah.
I can pretty much increase the size and create something like such. And now this is subdivision. Now that I actually came to the realization, that now I can move on to the next stage of knowing what I want and how to fix it. So I utilize the same front end and kind of mixed it with a few other sketches, but in more refined way. So I can start kind of thinking about the highlights and how the wheel opening relates to the corner and things like that. All within, each one would be 5 to 10 to 15 minutes or so. So it's really quick iteration. And if you show it like this, once again, it is acceptable. I just wouldn't show just a single piece like this, because it's hard to just understand. The beauty about this in our field is that you can show process.
Yeah.
And very quickly. Moving forward from that, now, those were about 15 minutes. This is a little more, because now you have this informed 3 versions of your idea. This took me perhaps 45 minutes to do. Of course, here and there I went back to maybe refine a few areas. I actually, for the final, this is not the final project in itself, but I actually ended up fixing this indentation because I feel like it kind of cut too quickly into the headlight. So I brought this out like an extrusion. But in itself, you start kind of bringing in, I brought in the chassis that I had over there, start really showcasing this. So the way I would pretty much, I was presenting to the group was kind of creating these transparencies where you can kind of vaguely see where the battery pack and the motors would be. But overall, how the stance of the vehicle and even some of the details could already be seen as part of the design process. And of course, I had already proven that the proportions and sizing was there. So you can already kind of tell that would be the final proportion and size of the overall vehicle. And I back it up by including these preliminary renders for each concept, and never forget to bring in a bit more of the secondary step of your process, like, because I feel like even once you present like the final renders for at least that iteration, they still like to see that you explored kind of like the graphics and the final positioning of things as to why. Likewise, this is the larger footprint vehicle, still the same placement of the chassis. So that is the beauty of this program as well, that you can actually just copy and paste what you already proven before, so you don't waste any time. This is completely different footprint. It's just based on that chassis, but I was able to do it really, really quickly just by positioning the chassis and the people, and then just kind of sub-D'ing on top of it.
Were those secondary sketches? Were you just freehanding those, or like in like Photoshop, or is that at all based on using like screenshots from Gravity Sketch and things like that?
It's a little bit of both. So the initial ones were just free-handed, all these, and then this ones were definitely screenshots, as you can see the people here. There's something really cool that I liked about this, is that, even just a rough, let's say, take a screenshot of this, they were always asking me for transparency of glass. They were like, I want to know exactly where the A-pillar relates to, to the visibility of the person. I want to see the person there. And I'm like, man, it's going to take me forever to do. So then I started taking the screenshots. Yes, rendering for the most part, like half of it, but really making sure that I stayed true to what I had already figured out. So
you're kind of like photoshopping the glass part in from the screenshot and then rendering on top of that.
Yeah, I was actually, this was already the picture. I just erased everything around. And I just started rendering right on top of the
Oh, wow.
screenshot.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
yeah. So that way you don't have to Photoshop much more than you need to. You can actually just kind of start planting out your graphics and started rendering right on top of it, so you can really, really stay true to what you already figured out. Because if not, you're going to be doing the job twice.
Yeah.
And for iterations, it's so easy having Gravity Sketch. So like you can invite them pretty much to see the different iterations on the model. But, you know, like you mentioned, pretty much screenshotting, you can quickly render on top of it and to really show maybe the new light or a new surface that can actually fix any issues that you might have. And likewise, this is pretty much what we had a little bit of an issue in terms of stance. Issue in the sense that, so we were thinking, so his name is Randall Smock. He was so insightful, like in telling me, okay, when you deliver, let's say, a concept, you do want to push the boundaries, and sometimes Gravity Sketch allows you to do that. But you also, if you're gonna showcase your knowledge about how production vehicles usually stand and how they work, then you would show a bit of this, you know, of course, the wheel gap, not overly extended fenders such as, yeah, maybe this ones or so. And so this is kind of like where the iteration of using those screenshots, or even in the program, we were actually just moving things back and forward. So including notes was a huge part of it, where I wish I could show you, because part of the process was just as messy as what I showed you before. It was just a lot of layering and a lot of notes that would just be right here, like, oh, you know, this part does this and that, and then I would just erase it once I fix it.
Yeah. I'm just curious because, like, you know, you're talking about, I'm trying to see the difference that you were talking about with like this proportion and stance. If you could go back up to the 2D. Interesting.
Yeah, on this one, it was very minimal. It was very minimal because it was already leading to, okay, you can actually see the big difference. Maybe, well, maybe I can because I saw it for so many days. But this one, it's just really pushing outward. This one was really just like slammed. The fenders were really popping out. So it looked extremely wide. Some of these areas were really, really wide, and then the wraparound would be somewhere like a third probably into the mass of the vehicle. So by kind of working on the side views, we started thinking like, you know, maybe like what areas are worth over mentioning, or if we actually can clear it out and create like a wheel gap there. Yeah, just kind of like more prominent areas to where it would kind of remain again true to the emotion of the vehicle, but not make it look, for the lack of words, cartoony or overly stretched.
Oh, okay. So it's like kind of, you're talking about like the difference between like a production vehicle and a concept vehicle, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, we were trying to find out within both sketches and the model how to, you know, fine tune certain areas. Because, you know, if I were to deliver this one right here, it would just look so like completely slammed. I think you can actually kind of see it on this one. I think this was the preliminary one. If you get really low, you see how overly exaggerated it is. And that's great for a concept. It's just like, wow, okay, the stance is incredible. I've never seen that. And production will be like, of course you've never seen that, because it wouldn't fit on a lane in the street, right?
Right.
And so this is kind of like, okay, let's put the rooftop and see if the issue was, you know, having a rooftop or not. And no, it didn't take it away. It just kind of, you know, even the huge gap here, I try to reduce it a little bit and kind of make it more production. Still, no, not really there, right? So this is kind of like where you can actually work with the designer and be like, you know, I kind of don't like that. Can you move this whole thing? Sure, I can. Just kind of, you know, move it in such way, you know, that benefits the design. And
so like even those like small adjustments you were doing here, not in like Blender or something else.
Exactly.
Wow.
Because if you think about it, like I don't know, like at BMW, we used to, we were pretty much showcasing our project internally, maybe once a week or twice. The reasoning why is because you kind of revise your work internally to make sure that everything's fine. Or if you have any constraints that you probably didn't fix, or you might have to fix, or you didn't realize, then you can do it on the spot.
Yeah.
But when you're sketching in Photoshop or you're doing something in Blender, you only have the proof that you have then and there. You're gonna have to tell your boss, well, let me get back to you maybe in a few hours. When you invite them, they're like, you know what, I don't like this.
Oh,
Maybe,
okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah, they're like, maybe you can fix that. I was like, oh, what do you mean? Even if you don't understand what they meant, sometimes, I mean, that always falls through. You're like, oh, maybe you should kind of bring it in and fix that.
It's kind of like you're working a clay almost.
Exactly. And they love that. They love that because it's just so time efficient. They have the freedom of just adding notes and kind of destroying your model then and there, but you can fix it. So it's actually a lot of fun for them too.
Yeah.
And for I mean, for the final, I try to convey more of a storyboarding per se. So you can actually do 3D storyboarding. So kind of to tell how the battery pack can actually be, worn. There's a lot of like aftermarket, like in openings in aftermarket, design, and also like selling new products that can actually benefit your vehicle.
Right.
So let me see if I can unlock these. They're all unlocked. Okay. Well, that's strange. Okay. Anyways, well, these were supposed to move, but for some reason they're all locked in. You can actually, so the way I present it is pretty much like remove one of these and show how you can actually plug it in to add more range, or more kind of like these booster packs in case you take it to the track. This guy right here is kind of like taking one out. And the car in itself, like the fuselage, you can take it off and just see inside of it. Having the battery packs here, how you can sit in it, and how everything looks from within the vehicle. Yes, it's electric, but you can still have a you can still have gears. F1 vehicles have 2 to 3 gears, so you can actually still have drive-by-wire or so.
Yeah.
How you can pretty much, still kind of work in your vehicle. You can showcase that story in kind of like in real action, like in real time, and really show how you can actually work on the vehicle, and how the position of the suspension and motor and all those things.
Yeah.
And I was really looking forward to showcasing this right here. I don't know why. It seems to be doubled. Well, pretty much, yeah. As I was presenting, I was pretty much removing the opacity of, yeah, they're somehow grouped. Anyways, you can actually start removing opacities by creating your own folders here. Let's say you label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in accordance to how you're explaining it. So we started over there with the concept, leading from design from within, from the chassis all the way to the 5 to 15 minute sketches and the preliminary models. When you're showcasing the final, you can actually do, like I said, the storyboarding, but you can also kind of storyline your presentation in a way that you can add or remove pieces. Like, okay, now that you've seen the exterior, now let's walk into the interior, showcase how it kind of not folds away, but just kind of dissipates. Invite them to sit in it. I had this right here showcasing how he doesn't want to do it. Sorry about that, technical issues. Yeah, how you can actually improve the market by, this one just has the concept of either the co-pilot or the pilot can actually drive the vehicle.
Yeah.
So you can show that in real time, and they're just extremely pleased for the most part because you thought about every single angle of the design. Yeah, so once again, if you have any questions, please let me know. I hope that it's been helping out in any way.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. I had a quick question about so this presentation room, I've started to think about and build my final room for the presentation.
Okay.
How do you keep some of the stuff lightweight, I guess? I see, I have my project is related to actually something kind of similar to this, but it's more like a motorcycle scooter.
Okay.
It's for Ryobi tools. And I was wanting to actually build out a garage or something. Do you kind of just try to keep it, I guess you kind of just try to keep it simple and use the solids that are provided to kind of keep the scene light, so it's still performance, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So the performance of this one is actually, I chose the lighter model. If not, it might not even open the final. And on the final, I have an overwhelming amount of pages, just everything. Everything is already subdivided. Everything is populated. This is really a heavy file. The way I try to do it is layers are gonna be one of your friends, because sometimes when you reduce the opacity of a few layers that you don't need on the spot, it already kind of removes the bogging down of the, your visibility. Sometimes starts kind of choppy. You can reduce the ones that you don't need. Also, yeah, some of the stages and stuff, they're not, there's just simple geometry that you can just utilize, and in itself should be sufficient to showcase your idea. Like this one, I wasn't really mimicking anything. I just realized that let's say LA Auto Show, they're very simple spaces. They're huge, but they want people to kind of start flowing. So I actually started even kind of sketching how we were gonna present. So you start here, and then you go through that side, and then you come back all the way, and then you drive over here. So I'm like, okay, how can I do that? So I would just do simple stages of design, and then every pun of the word, like the stage is already kind of linked.
Cool. That was awesome. Thank you.
But yeah, please, any more questions? I'm happy to help in any way. Perhaps
Pretty sick, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I know we were originally going to look at some of your other sketches. Do you still have time to show us a little bit about that?
The other sketches, like other projects that I've done?
Yeah, just because you were talking about trying to really retain your sketch style as part of your presentation. So maybe just if you have any other examples of that you can show us.
Yes. I ran into a bit of a NDA problem there because I have
totally get it.
Yes. cover your eyes. Yes, I have a few sketches there that I have pretty much how I transfer the sketches, but I asked and I cannot really showcase that just yet. I thought I was on the clear.
Okay.
I was just really hoping to, let's see. Yeah, right. That would be pretty much kind of like everything I can showcase at the moment. with the
What
fullest
I can
extent.
do, what I can do too is I can add you to the student ambassador org. And
Okay.
then if you wanted to make a collab room inside the org and just maybe drop in some of your personal sketches
Okay.
for them to take a look at, just so that way they can see what you were talking about with that, but then we don't have to worry about jeopardizing anything with the NDA.
Right. Yeah. No, I really was looking forward to showing you the latest thing I've been doing, because Gravity Sketch was just a huge part of it. Oh, here it is. This is actually the final. It did actually open. That was great. So again, about the question about loading, perhaps overloading the program can actually take a lot. So yeah, everything is already subdivided. Surfacings are pretty much like a bit more refined. But yeah, this is as far as I can go at the moment in terms of showcasing, but I'll be definitely glad to drop in some new work that I'll be working on.
Yeah, perfect. I know everyone would really appreciate seeing that. Anybody else have any questions?
Not a question, but I do really appreciate, you showing us your process and kind of understanding, what you're presenting to the brands and, what we should be doing. So yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think given that I've been using this program for a while and really trying to promote it from within studios more than anything. I use it in school quite often, but it's a huge difference to transition from school to a studio, because now you have to prove, even if you did a rough sketch, you have to prove so many things, and a lot of the teams are not really aware that you can actually do professional level proving in this program. They were just thinking like, oh, it's great for doodling, coming up with some great sketches, but yeah, I just thought it would be very ideal to showcase in real time to the team how to really convey your ideas and really prove that they can be built to spec.
Yeah, thank you. No, this is really great. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great storytelling too. The whole layout's really cool, and like everything seems like yeah, it's like if you weren't here, being able to go through it with us, I think it's pretty clear on what your process was and the goals.
Yeah, part of my idea too. Thank you for that. I was really thinking of what our teachers usually say, that if you try to organize your process in the most simplistic yet concise way, then people can just step in and kind of feel what you felt as you went through it. They can really see what you're kind of like the inside of your brain. And when collab started pretty much opening up to just about everyone, I started thinking like, what if these rooms are open to the public and you can just invite people in, or they just found it by chance or so. And it's kind of like going through Behance or going through someone's portfolio, and you're like, wow, that's a great idea, that's a great format. So yeah, this was kind of like the point of that. If anyone just steps in, can already feel like how everything was conceived.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording right now.